What's going on, everybody? Today I'm going to be reviewing Dallas, the card game. This card game came out in 1980 and it is for 2 to 4 players. Now this card game is based off of the TV show of the same name from way back in the day. And the object of this game is you are trying to be the first player to collect $20 million in assets and cash. And you're going to be doing this by wheeling, dealing, and stealing. So let's show you Dallas, the card game. Okay, everybody, let's go ahead and get started. There are 2 types of cards in this game. You've got the Dallas card deck over here, and then you have the Ewing Connection card deck. What the Dallas card deck has, it has a combination of assets and money, and there's different amounts on each of the assets and money, and I'll talk about how those work here in a little bit. Now, there are 5 different assets in the game. You've got real estate, you've got raw land, you've got cattle, you have oil, and then you have securities. Now I'm going to just basically show you the main thing you're going to do in this game before I get into how the game is played. But mainly what you're going to be doing is you're going to be dealt 7 cards, and then you're going to be dealt 1 Ewing Connection card. And mainly what you're trying to do is you're trying to get at least 3 assets in your hand that you can lay down, like so. This is 3 oils, so let's just say I laid those down. Now the amounts that are on these are going to count towards the $20 million that you're going to need to win, and that is the object, to be the first person to reach $20 million. Right now I've got 500,000, 1 million, and 200,000, so that's $1.7 million. Now, the Ewing Connection cards have the same assets on here, and they also have the JR card. Now, with the assets card that the Ewing Connection cards have, typically you can only lay down 3 of these at a time, but with this, if you add this to it, you will go ahead and be able to add any other oil cards or cash cards that you have later on in the game. So for example, let's just say I happen to have 2 more oil cards in my hand. Well, I could go ahead and put those down like that. And if I had any cash that I wanted to possibly use towards my investment, I could go ahead and put those down too. And I can put as much of this on there as I want, so long as it is oil, at least in this case, and cash. It just has to basically be the same asset that you can build on. Now, in the very beginning, everybody is going to be dealt 7 of these Dallas cards and 1 Ewing Connection card. And you're going to go ahead and start by drawing 2 cards from the deck and then adding them to your hand. And the first thing you're going to be doing is what is called wheeling. Now, what wheeling means is you have a Ewing Connection card over here, and this one happens to have a stock certificate. I don't have any stock certificates in my hand right now at the moment, so I have a couple of options if I want to do it. I could take a cash card and go ahead and purchase another Ewing Connection card, which in this case I would just put in my hand like this, and this one happens to be real estate. Or if I wanted to, I could trade this Ewing Connection card that I have in my hand and put it down like that at the bottom of the pile, and then draw another Ewing Connection card. So that's the first thing that I can do, and that is what is called wheeling. The next thing up is dealing. Now, with dealing, what this basically means is you are going to have an opportunity to possibly get cards from the middle to help with your hand, and there's a couple of ways you can do this. The first is to use a cash card to purchase what is in the middle. Now, you have to use the exact amount of cash that you have in your hand to purchase one or a combination of all these properties. So if I happen to have like a $700,000 cash card, which I don't have, but if I did, I could go ahead and purchase both of these that are in the middle. Now, and I can also do the same if there's a cash card in there as well. Say I had a $1.5 million card like this one. I could actually purchase this $1 million card and then this $500,000 asset right over here. And the reason I might want to do that is because since you need exact amounts of money, if you had an extra $1 million card and there was a $1 million asset on here, you could go ahead and use the $1 million card since you cannot make change. So that's one thing you could do. So let's just say, for example, I took this $1.5 million card, I took it out, and then I went ahead and I purchased these 2 cards. That's one thing that I can do. Now, another thing I can do is I can trade an asset for an asset, and the way I would do that is I would look at the amount of money that a particular asset has and try to find something that is the exact same amount on here, and I can only do that with one asset. I can't use one asset to collect 2. So for an example, let's just say I happen to have this card that's worth $200,000. I could get this card that's worth $200,000 and put it in my hand. And again, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to build up a hand to where I can start putting things down, like three of the cattle or 3 of the oils. So that's kind of what the dealing part is. You're just trying to make deals to try to get the best possible hand that you can. And as I said, once you have 3 cards that you can lay down, you can go ahead and just lay them down whenever, and then you can build on them if you have the Ewing card for this, and then you can just continue to build from there. Now, the next thing you can do is what is called stealing. If your opponent happens to have an unprotected set down here, and this would be an example, if he happens to have a Ewing card that matches the asset that your opponent has, he can just lay this down and take it for his own, like so. And then he's going to get all the credit. And it would not matter if I had happened to have another Ewing card on there. So long as my opponent has a Ewing card that matches the set over here, he can go ahead and take it. Now, another thing you can do is you can play the dreaded JR card. Now, there's 3 of these in the deck, and this does 2 things. The first thing you can do is you can steal somebody else's set with the card. So if I could do something like this and steal this and then put it back over here. Another thing this card does is it protects your investments over here. So if you have a JR card, your opponent is not going to be able to steal it. Now, when you steal an investment, if you happen to have like another set of cards down, if you wanted to, you could go ahead and add them to this, like so. Or you could let them stand out on its own. And then after you do all these things, or a combination of all these things, you're going to go ahead and discard a card into the middle, and it can be either a cash card or an asset card. So I would just simply do something like this, and then it would go on to my opponent. Now, there's a couple of ways you can go out. If you happen to have only 1 card left in your hand after you've played your cards, you can just simply discard it, and you can go out that way. Or if you happen to have no cards in your hand because you've invested or stolen or put money out or whatever, you can go out that way too. Now, scoring is pretty easy in this game. What you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and just count up the points here on your assets, like 200,000 here, 200,000 here, of the ones that you've laid down. Any of the Ewing connection cards you've laid down are going to be worth $1 million, and then any cash that you've placed on any of your investments is also going to count towards your total. Now, if you end up having a Ewing card in your hand, and if you're not the first person to go out, if you happen to have a Ewing card in your hand, you're going to have to deduct 1,000,000 points from your score, but you'll still be able to score with the sets that you've laid down. So anyway, guys, that's basically how the game works. Wheeling, dealing, stealing your way up to $20 million worth of investments. And the first person to reach that, it wins the game. And that, folks, is Dallas. So my final thoughts on Dallas, the card game. Well, I would like to send my friend Wes Ray a special thank you for sending me this card game to review. He was really excited when he got it, and he wanted me to review it for him, and I said love to. I have to say I really like this game. I like the process between having to lay down the cards and trying to figure out what you want to do as far as Ewing cards go. Do you want to put some cash towards it to get one? Because they can be very helpful during the game. But a lot of times you're going to end up with a Ewing card that you don't need and you'll have wasted your cash. But sometimes you'll get one that will help you. I like the fact that there's a lot of choices that you have. Do you want to spend some money to get some assets from the middle? Do you want to trade an asset for an asset? When do you want to lay your cards down? Do you want to lay them down sooner rather than later? Because you're going to get penalized if you end up getting caught with some of those Ewing cards. So there's some choices in this game that you can make, and there's some strategy in here. Now, I have read some reviews about people saying that this game is broken, and I think the problem that they have with it is that, you know, with the JR cards and the way you can steal the cards, you know, it can kind of make the game unbalanced. But when you think about it, Dallas was a show where the character J.R. Ewing was very scheming. He was not the nicest guy in the world at all, and he would do anything he could to get the most amount of money that he could and to basically screw people's lives up. That was his deal. You know, he would do things that you were allowed to do in this game. So I wouldn't call the game broken necessarily, but I would call it brutal because you can actually start just stealing people's stuff from their table, put a JR card on there, and then they can't take it back. That's pretty brutal. So guys, that's my review of Dallas. I hope you all have a great day. Keep on gaming.